What's up everybody, it's Dave here with Comics Games Life, and today's video is on 2017's Darth Maul series. And these events take place prior to Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, back when Darth Maul's existence had yet to be revealed and the Sith were still thought to be completely eradicated. Now Darth Maul is restless and chomping at the bit to spill some Jedi blood, but Darth Sidious has him on a tight leash because he doesn't want him interfering with his master plans. But in order to scratch that violent itch that he has, Darth Maul takes it upon himself and goes behind his master's back to go on these hunting trips where he takes down some of the galaxy's most dangerous beasts as well as criminals and bounty hunters. Which brings us to the planet Tuan Kati, where we have a pack of hunters trying to flush out some dangerous Rathars. But unfortunately they are in over their heads, which causes them to lose their heads, because these Rathars violently take them out. And off in the shadows observing this massacre is a man himself, Darth Maul. Equipped with the long-handled axe plus the powerful Sith emotions of fear, anger, and hatred, he hacks and slashes his way through this Rathar. And when it's finally dead and gone, he looks over his shoulder only to realize that this Rathar was part of a pack, and the others are getting ready to make a meal of him, but they fare no greater than the first and end up dead by his hand. Now Darth Maul, the Zabrak native of Dathomir, looks upon these carcasses and thinks of all the similarities he has with these monstrous creatures. But one thing he doesn't have that they did, and that he envies, is they have their freedom. Now back on Coruscant, we see Darth Maul in an alley hidden in the shadows looking upon a different kind of prey, a Jedi and her Padawan, and he's yearning to end their lives. His rage and anger are bubbling up to the point where he can no longer contain, but still he holds himself back, fearful of his master's reprimand. But through pain, suffering, and intense training, he's been forged to be a weapon of revenge towards the Jedi, and being unused in his sole purpose is driving him into a rage. And through the Force, the Jedi and her Padawan are picking up on these evil intentions. So they rush to the alley to go investigate, only to find nothing, and those malevolent intentions that they were feeling through the Force have disappeared just the same. Now back at the side of Darth Sidious, Darth Maul is getting somewhat of a scolding, as Sidious is telling him he's getting too reckless, and that his patience for his shenanigans are starting to wear thin. However, he does have a mission for him that will hopefully quench some of that bloodlust, because there's a secret mining operation in the Kellic system that's ran by the Trade Federation, and it's just been raided by pirates, and since Sidious has a vested interest in the project, he wants Darth Maul to kill every last one of these pirates and put the mining control operation back into the hands of the Trade Federation. So Maul accepts his master's orders and makes his way to the Kellic system. Now the pirates have put orb wings surrounding the mining facility, but Darth Maul is able to sneak up and take them out one by one, and quickly he makes his way inside the facility, and in acrobatic, lightsaber wielding fashion, he ends the lives of all the pirates except for one, because that one happens to have some information. Because this pirate, he looks and he sees that lightsaber and says, hey, I know what you are. You're a Jedi. If you spare my life, I have some information that I know you want to hear. And instead of killing him where he stands, Darth Maul holds back his anger for being mistaken for a Jedi because he's really curious on what this guy has to say. And so the pirate goes on to tell him that the boss mistress of the Zrexis cartel, Zev Zrexis, has captured herself a Jedi Padawan, and she plans on auctioning off this Padawan to the highest bidder. And then Darth Maul demands where this auction is being taken place. And that's where the information stops, because the pirate doesn't know. So Darth Maul continues with his master's orders and kills this last standing pirate. But seeing the opportunity to kill a Jedi without his master knowing, he cannot pass up this opportunity. But looking around and realizing that members of the Trade Federation also heard this pirate give him this information. So if he's going to go through with his plan of killing this Padawan, he can't leave any witnesses. So instead of just taking out the pirates, he kills everyone in the mining facility. And then Darth Maul makes his way to Nar Shaddaa, aka the Smuggler's Moon. Now this is the moon off the planet Nal Hutta, which happens to be the homeworld of the Hutts, as well as dominated by bounty hunters and Hutt crime lords. Darth Maul makes his way into a bar and happens to catch everyone's eye as he walks in. Now this place is full of lowlifes and smugglers, guaranteed that every person in this place is armed to the teeth. And he walks up to the barkeep and he starts asking about Zev Zrexis. And then the barkeep, a fellow Zabrak, that he shouldn't be coming in here asking questions like that because it's going to upset the clientele. And that's exactly what it does. And a mob comes up behind him and they end up calling him a Jedi lackey. And we all know how much Darth Maul loves being called that. So instantly a bar brawl breaks out, which quickly pours out into the main streets. So Maul instinctively grabs his lightsaber but holds back because he realizes that he can't disclose his identity. He can't reveal that he's a Sith or even a Force user of any kind. So he delves into some hand-to-hand combat and begins manhandling each one of these bounty hunters. But then a Quarren steps up and sprays ink in his face. Blinded by this, the other bounty hunters step in and take their shots while they can. Now Maul is down on the ground, but he's definitely not out, because he spots a knife on the ground, and slyly he uses the Force just enough to project the knife from the ground and into the chest of the Quarren that sprayed ink in his face. So Maul gets to his feet and the other bounty bounty hunters are shocked because they didn't see where the knife came from. Is this guy really that fast? And while they're all slightly confused, they decide, you know what, we're just gonna shoot this guy down. So they all pull out their blasters, point it at a still blinded Maul, and the street erupts in blaster fire. But not from these guys, but from a whole nother crew standing behind Maul. The infamous Aura Singh, Cad Bane, and the female Colicetto named Vordello. Now this band of rogues is actually working with Maul. They're there to investigate to see if they can find out where the location of this auction is happening. And their search has come back fruitful because they're telling Maul that they have found the location, but not only that, but they secured an invitation to the party as well. But unfortunately, there are Jedi here investigating the Padawan's disappearance, so we gotta make ourselves scarce. So they stop Vordello from drinking the blood of one of the fallen bounty hunters, and they make their way back to their ship where they find the last member of this little squad, a member of the Chadra fan species named Trul Trill Tech, aka Tech. Now he's a saboteur and a droid specialist, and when I mean specialist, he's more of a sadomasochist when it comes to droids, because we find him tearing apart this translator droid, FEB3, aka Phoebe. And Phoebe is begging for his life, and he's asking the other members of the crew to get this little raccoon-looking thing away from him. Okay, so let me stop here and backtrack a little bit, because this actually isn't their ship. This ship belonged to a different crew that Cad Bane and the others happened to just kill, because they found out that the members of this ship's crew were going to the auction. But before they were actually able to secure the exact location, they ended up killing everybody, so all they have left is this translator droid, Phoebe. And at first, Phoebe was putting up a fight saying that they didn't know where the location was, but after Darth Maul dismantled the droid's remaining eye and left him with the threat that he's gonna let Tech do whatever he wants to him, the droid fesses up and gives him the location. So now they're in the Drazgil system where Zev Zrexis has her ship where the auction is going to be taking place. And Aura and Cad, they're talking, because Aura's not too sure why Darth Maul even hired them, because Darth Maul seems more than capable than taking this mission on. And Bane's suspecting that Darth Maul doesn't want partners, he wants patsies. So we'll keep our guard up, and if he makes doing what he promises, we're gonna get rich off this job. But if he doesn't, there's plenty of loot to be had on Zev Zrexis' ship. So they keep their cool and look out for any backstabbing that could potentially be coming from Maul. Meanwhile, while they're talking, Maul's in the back of the ship in his quarters, and he's quietly meditating, refueling his mind and body with negative thoughts to ensure that he succeeds in the next part of the mission. And he's bringing himself back to the memory of when Darth Sidious brought him to Malachor to visit the old Sith temple where the Battle of Malachor happened. This is when the Jedi Order invaded the temple on Malachor and killed many Sith. And we can see that in the temple, their bodies are still petrified, turned into statues of ash. And Darth Sidious force grabs some of that ash and makes a much younger Darth Maul inhale it. And when he does, he sees the visions and the memories of all those who died in battle. And from what he's seeing, the Jedi look like monsters, ransacking and mercilessly killing all the Sith members inside. Not only that, but he's actually feeling every single lightsaber blow that was delivered by the Jedi to the Sith in that temple. So he's feeling thousands of slashes across his body. And this solidifies his hatred for the Jedi, because in his mind, the Jedi are the evil ones, because he was taught by Sidious that the Sith only wanted to be free and not be constrained by the rules of attachment that the Jedi follow. So that's why Darth Maul hates the Jedi so much. He was coerced into this way of thinking by Darth Sidious through manipulation and pain. And now we find Darth Maul and the crew on the ship where the auction is going to take place. And those who are in attendance are a who's who of the galaxy's criminal element. There's representatives of the Pike Syndicate, Weequay Pirates, Assassin Droids, Trandoshans, Hutts, Mugens, and I'm pretty sure this guy's part of the Black Sun. And now enters the Lady of the Hour, Zev Zrexis. She begins to give a speech about how the auction will take place and a quick backstory of how she got possession of the Padawan in the first place. And while she's doing this, Darth Maul takes this opportunity to find the Padawan himself. And as he's making his way through the ventilation shafts, he's thinking to himself about how disgusted he is about all the cutthroats and criminals who are in attendance and the deviant things they have in mind for this Padawan. None of them have intentions as pure as his are. And he's even beginning to feel that his own master, with all of his planning and his plotting, goes against the nature of the dark side, embracing and expressing your rawest emotions. And he doesn't kid himself. He knows that if his master were to find out about this, there's a good chance that he wouldn't live through his punishment. And finally, he's found the Padawan, and she is just feet away from him, and all that separates them is a protective force field, and he can taste the retribution. And the Padawan looks back at him, and she's kind of scoffing at him. She's saying that, what, who are you supposed to be? And Darth Maul can feel her defiance. But then as he pulls out his lightsaber, he feels that defiance melting away and turning into fear as she's confused, wondering, wait, who are you? Then Maul quickly puts away his lightsaber because Zev Zrexis just walked into the corridor, and she doesn't seem hostile or angry. Quite the contrary, she actually seems a little bit intrigued. So she begins asking Maul Maul who he is. And he gives her some story about him being part of the Hadrax Consortium. And those are the guys that own the ship that Maul and his crew killed and stole and flew to the auction. And then he apologizes to Zev for his rashness, saying that he only wanted to get a look at the Padawan before the auction took place. And Zev responds by saying she can appreciate a little bit of rashness, but her patience has limits, so she doesn't want to see him doing anything like this again. And then they all make their way back down to the main area. There are multiple holograms of the Padawan being displayed in the auction area for everyone to see and inspect. And while all this is happening, Darth Maul is looking around, and he feels his fury building. And all he wants to do is kill everyone on this ship and get to the Jedi he was meant to kill. But all this time he complains about his master telling him to be patient. And now he's starting to understand, because the only way for his mission to be successful is if he himself is to practice patience so that his own plan will unfold. Now that the bidding has begun, the price skyrockets instantly. But Darth Maul had no intentions of actually purchasing this Padawan. They're going to see who wins the auction and then ambush the winners once they get to their ship and then escape with the Padawan. And as the price goes higher and higher, the winner is eventually the Mugen G. Kra. So while Darth Maul is in the main arena, Cad Bane and the rest of the guys are already in ambush mode, and they're taking out the Mugens who are on the ship currently while waiting for the big boss with the Padawan to arrive. And when they finally do, they're caught off guard by what they see, and Darth Maul shows them no mercy. And then he does something what I'd love to see in a live action film, is that he takes off his cloak, he throws it at the head of G. Kra, and using the Force makes it wrap around his head and makes him suffocate. And while he's using the Force doing that, he's doing hand-to-hand combat, taking out the rest of the Mugens. And the Padawan is looking at this all go down, and she's thinking to herself, I know who he is. I know what he is. And she doesn't really seem fearful. She actually looks a little bit excited. And when Darth Maul is done killing everybody, she confronts him and she says, I know what you are. And then Darth Maul cuts her off, saying she knows nothing about who I am and nothing about what I want. And she responds defiantly, saying that I'm not afraid of you. I know the scum that you're working with, and you can't fool me. All that acrobatics and kicking, I know what you really wanted to use. And before she even utters the word lightsaber, Darth Maul picks up her lightsaber and yells to everyone that we're getting out of here now. And then he pushes her into a back room where they can get some privacy. And she turns and looks at him and says, you're a Sith. I didn't think you were real. I heard rumors about you all when I was a youngling. And Maul replies, of course not. You prayed you would never see us in the flesh. And then the Twi'lek Padawan responds with the truth. No, you're the one that's afraid. You're the one hiding in the shadows. You're the one who can't show his face. And while she's protesting, Darth Maul begins to recite this mantra that he once was taught by Darth Sidious. Far above, far below. We don't know where we'll fall. Far above, far below. What once was great is rendered small. And then the Twilight Jedi Padawan goads Darth Maul into a fight and tells him to take off her shackles to see who's really more powerful. And then Maul points her lightsaber back at her and says, you are not my equal. But don't worry, I will cut you free. I will give you your lightsaber, and then I will have my revenge. Now, while the whole crew thinks they've gotten away clean, an explosion blows off part of the ship and brings them all back to reality. And as the ship crash lands into a nearby moon, Zev initiates the next part of her plan, and that's putting out to all those who are still in attendance at the auction's after party that the ship that held the Padawan has crash landed nearby, and she's allowing everyone there the opportunity to hunt this young Jedi for a large buy-in price. So not only did she get the money from the auction, but she set up this elaborate plan to also get credits from everyone else at the party who wants to partake in this hunt. So even in space, there's no honor amongst thieves. After crash landing on the moon of Dreskel, Darth Maul quickly put two and two together, and they see that the explosion that happened on their ship was from the inside and was only small enough to disable the ship, not to harm the passengers or cargo. So they see that this was a setup, regardless of who won the Padawan in the auction. This was always part of Zev's plan. So they're anticipating the rest of the people at the auction to be planetside very soon to hunt them all down. So they come up with the plan. Bane, Aura, and Vordello, they hide out into the ship's land, and once the hunting parties are out and about, they hijack one of the ships and disable the rest. And Darth Maul and the Twi'lek Padawan Eldra Kaitis are going to act as bait to lure the hunters away from the ships and most likely to their deaths. But there are a couple of members of the crew missing. Where's Tech Tech and Phoebe? Well, it seems like Tech Tech wasn't so lucky. He got pretty banged up in the crash. He's lost a leg and he's bleeding out fast. And as he's crawling across a desert, he comes across Phoebe, and he's asking Phoebe for help, telling him, please, you have to help me. And Phoebe's like, help you? What a strange request. Perhaps I could if I still had my eyes. And that's the last we see of Tech Tech. We're not shown his actual death, but most likely he probably died due to the wounds that he suffered in the crash. So at this point, everybody who was a part of the auction has just touched down on the moon, and they're all on the hunt. A team of Trandoshans pick up a trail where they suspect that the Jedi might have gone to, but unfortunately they don't find any Jedi. They find Cad Bane, and before they try to take him out, he challenges their leader to a duel, and wearing his pride on his sleeve, the leader accepts the offer. And as they both take the proper stance, getting ready to draw their sidearms, Aura, who's on a cliffside not too far away, snipes a few of the Trandoshans, and Fordello jumps out of the woodwork with a knife in each appendage, and they all make quick work of the Trandoshan hunting party. Now as Darth Maul and Eldra Kaitis is luring out the rest of the hunters, there's a pretty cool and dare I say almost funny back and forth between the two, because Eldra Kaitis, she may not be Ahsoka Tano, but she's just as snippy as Ahsoka was when she was a Padawan, and she's telling Maul that we're outnumbered and two are better than one, so let me free of my shackles and give me my lightsaber. And Maul hesitates for a moment, but then does as she asks, and just then the Pike Syndicate pops out of nowhere, and both of the Force users jump into an attack stance, with Eldra telling Darth Maul, "May the Force be with you," and Darth Maul responding with, "Spare me your Jedi platitudes. The Force is always with me." Now I don't know if that part was supposed to be serious or funny, but I thought it was pretty funny, because although Darth Maul has his animosity towards all Jedi, once he clashes with their defiant attitude, it becomes almost comical. And as they both use their lightsaber and Force abilities on all the hunters they encounter, Darth Maul is starting to gain respect for her, so much so that he thinks that it may be possible to pull her to the dark side. And in between skirmishes with the hunters, they're traversing through the mountains, and she's talking to Maul, telling him, "I thought all you guys were extinct, and why reveal your secret now? Why come after me? Why am I so important?" And then Eldra stops him, saying, "You know what, enough of this, let's get on with it." And Maul says, "No, this is a sacred right. I will not have it sullied by cutthroats and criminals." And she's putting all the pieces together in her head, because she tells him that you just don't want any witnesses. Why are you trying to hide all this? Who are you afraid of? But they continue on, and as they do, they find more hunters and get into more fights, until finally they're all dead. And Eldra tells Maul, "We don't have to do this. You don't have to give yourself completely to the dark side." And Maul says, "If you believe that, you are not the Jedi I thought you were." And she's like, "Yeah, I just wanted to give you a chance to get out of this, so you're not humiliated before I kill you." And Maul snarls back, "Just like your Jedi predecessors did to the Sith." And then there's that moment of calmness, the look in their eyes, the flashing of their sabers, and then finally, they fight. Now Darth Maul is ecstatic at the fact that he's actually fighting a Jedi. Although a Padawan, Eldra Kaitis is very skilled and is not far away from being a full-fledged knight. While their battle rages on, a couple of things are happening. One, Zev Zrexis gets word that all the hunting parties are dead, and she doesn't really care, seeing as how she got all of their entry fees prior to them landing planetside. Second, you got the 3 bounty hunters who are picking off the stragglers who stayed behind to watch the starships, and once they pick out the vessel that they want to use, they disable all the rest, grab up whatever loot they can find, and wait for Maul to return. But Maul's getting a little bit more than he bargained for with this fight with Eldra, because she's successfully using Force moves as well as lightsaber strikes that's leaving Darth Maul with some visible battle damage. And as the battle goes on, it looks like Eldra is gaining the upper hand in this fight, because once she force pushes Maul into the side of a mountain, she launches her lightsaber like a javelin, and it lands just above his head. And with Maul thinking that she missed, a sly grin appears on her face, because rocks start to fall due to the avalanche that she just created, and large rocks and boulders all topple on top of Darth Maul. And now thinking she's won the fight, Eldra picks up her lightsaber and turns to walk away. And just then, an explosion of rubble happens, and out comes Maul charging towards Eldra, lightsaber in hand, and pierces her through the torso. Caught off guard by this, and with her last fleeting seconds of life, she begins to cry, as Maul gives her probably the greatest compliment he can give an enemy, and tells her, "Make no mistake, Eldra Kaitis, you are Jedi." And just like that, Darth Maul has killed his first Jedi, and not bothering to give her a proper burial of any sort, all he does is cut through her lightsaber and walks away. And as he's making his way to where the ships have landed, he comes across a blind Phoebe, mumbling to whoever will listen and asking for help. And in passing, Darth Maul nonchalantly takes his lightsaber and cuts him down. And he sees off in the distance that the bounty hunters are waiting for him in the ship they've commandeered. And he wasn't expecting that. He was for sure thinking that they would have just left him for dead. But he understands their desire for money would not let that happen. And he intends to hold his end of the deal and make sure that they're fully compensated. But he's not going to hitch a ride with them, because he has one more score to settle, and that's with Zev Zrexis. And she's back in her starship, and she's half drunk, and she's yelling to her crew to get me some more wine. How come no one's listening to me? And a voice off in the distance gives her an answer, but not the one she was looking for. And Darth Maul tells her they're all dead. and she doesn't beg, but she does ask if it's worth bartering for her life. But Maul has no use for money. He came on his mission of revenge and vengeance and succeeded. But to completely tie up loose ends, there can be no witnesses. And unfortunately for Zev, she knows what he is. And the moment after she calls him a Sith, he executes her. Now back on Coruscant, Darth Maul is with Darth Sidious, and Sidious is asking him, has your bloodlust been quenched? And Darth Maul is shocked that he knew, even though he shouldn't be. And for a moment he's fearful because he knows he's been disloyal and gone against his master's wishes. And Sidious responds in an unexpected way. And instead of punishing Darth Maul for his disobedience, he actually assures him that the Sith are born out of defiance. So Maul has embraced the very nature of the Order. And Sidious asks again, are you satisfied? And Maul plainly says, no. And Sidious, with an evil smile on his face, says, good. And then he walks away, leaving Darth Maul to ponder. This fear, rage, and anger that he's feeling towards the Jedi, having killed one of them, has done nothing to satiate it. In fact, it's only intensified. And seeing now that the emptiness he feels inside cannot be filled, there's only one thing left to do, and that's to wait. So that is the end of the Star Wars series Darth Maul. Now, Maul is one of my favorite characters in the Star Wars universe. Like pretty much everyone else out there, when he was cut in half in episode 1, we were all kind of devastated because you give us this great character and all of a sudden you just take him away. But thankfully he was brought back in the Clone Wars, and then we got a few novels and some comic book series that give us a deeper look into his life until finally putting him to rest in the animated series Star Wars Rebels. So feel free to let me know what you thought of the story, and if you have any suggestions of stories you would like to see me do in the future, go ahead and mention all that down in the comments below. And while you're at it, go ahead and subscribe, share, and like if you haven't done it already. And like always, don't forget to support your local comic and game shops, and I will see you guys next time.